Oh yeah. Bow, bow. Oh. Welcome to Estimates, the official booster club of the U.S. Census, and now the main source of information for the federal, state, and international government. Not local, though. We don't trust
That's
the
right.
Blasio.
Now that we can't go door to door in these trying times, it's really just this podcast.
It's just us out there.
The census.
So let's fill in quickly. Who are you two? I'm Joe Hawthorne. What are your names?
I'm Mavi Hawthorne.
Are you also Mavi Hamilton?
I'm Ham Hawthorne.
Oh, the whole family's here. All right. So going back to last week, when we talked last week tonight, we asked ourselves a few questions. The first one was, how many non-chicken eggs are eaten in Brooklyn per spring Corona week? So like the April-May week.
Yeah.
You guys remember how many we guessed?
I do not, to be honest.
Do you remember what our logic was, though?
Yeah, we were mainly focused on roe. We figured that roe was the primary non-chicken egg.
Right, and
others were
how many like fish eggs do we estimate were in one roll? 1,000?
Something like that.
Okay, yeah. Let's say 1,000. Let's say a clean 1,000. So we estimated, well, Hamilton and I rather estimated, is between about 500,000 and 700,000 roe eggs eaten per week in a spring Brooklyn location. So you might be surprised to learn that I didn't find the exact number, but I have a few pieces of information. First of all, it may interest you to know that there are 13 confirmed Japanese or sushi restaurants that serve this kind of food open in Brooklyn.
Just 13?
Really?
13 confirmed. I went through several blogs that like had gone through like different social media or ordered from places and stuff. So that's the number. Wow. Yeah, I mean,
okay.
There's a lot of sushi places in New York that are in Manhattan, like especially the Lower East Side. You like, it's almost impossible not to like walk from one, sushi place and then you get like hit in the face with another one.
Sure.
Those Manhattan.
Wait, was that pre-pandemic or post-pandemic? These blogs?
These are ones open during the pandemic.
Okay.
There's many more places that have closed.
Do you have your list handy? Check it against.
Yeah, we could go through those. 13 is something we can just list out.
No, well,
in our first official census
list. Could actually count. We could actually call each of them and ask them about their row usage.
I was rapid because I went through so many restaurants that I was just looking at location and then deleting the tab when I counted it.
I see. Did you count Japan Village and Industry City?
Yes.
All right. Okay.
Yeah,
then it's valid.
List
is valid.
I'm not an idiot. And then I estimated off the top of my head that between places in Long Island City, like Queens borderline, even like I guess Manhattan, that there's probably at least at least half a dozen more places that get some regular orders outside of Brooklyn that are brought into Brooklyn.
Good thinking.
So I brought my number.
Damn.
Yeah, I think ahead. I brought my number up to 20 restaurants that are regularly serving Brooklyn clientele row eggs. So if they all sell one roll a day, that's it. If they only sell one roll, then that is, what did I say? That is 14,000 eggs per week. This is just one roll from each of them. So, if we're extrapolating out of that, I think it's a really, like Mavi said it was over 1 million eggs, and I think he's probably right because I didn't find the exact numbers on the average sales of sushi rolls and row eggs, but I did find this article from Staten Island, written just at the end of April, that says that a restaurant called Empire Szechuan was reopened after closing and had to close again because of the crushing amount of crowds they had that were coming to get sushi. And that they basically were completely overwhelmed immediately. So if I extrapolate that to other Brooklyn locations, I think that actually sushi is way on the rise. The takeout is way on the rise. So I'm estimating that it's over 1 million, if not way more row eggs.
Yeah. I think we can maybe say over 10 million. I think we can bump it up.
I've just looked at a picture of row eggs, and they're even smaller than I remembered. So
I want to complicate this further. That count of 13 or 20, that's only public-facing businesses, right? That doesn't include like whatever. I mean, how many families do you think there are in downtown Brooklyn that never cook for themselves and instead use private services that
Yeah,
bring food in?
there's a
There
number
have
of
got to be a few sushi services that aren't advertising publicly that they make sushi and deliver it, but they do to some number of families.
Oh yeah, and I counted a few of these
People.
businesses, but I bet there's more that sell the supplies and encourage you to make your own. So
Yes, that's true too.
keeping all that, in, I think we're blowing way past half a million row eggs. We're saying that there are millions.
And then
of
I mean
non-chicken
we're
eggs.
only counting sushi because of our deep lack of knowledge of the usage of row.
I haven't
around
counted
the
French
world,
eggs.
So there could definitely be other dishes that use fish eggs that we haven't thought of in other cuisines.
Yeah. The point is that if there was someone who was righter, it was Mavi, but we were all terribly, terribly wrong about the lack of demand for sushi eggs. On the other hand, this means that the Brooklyn sushi economy must be thriving, at least in the underground levels. Okay, now moving on, we had 2 other questions. Do you guys remember what either of these other questions were?
No.
It's only been a
that
week.
one really occupied my brain space for like the previous week.
Well, that occupied my research because the other ones are even harder to figure out. The other questions were, how many holes are punched in Guam per spring week? Punched in a wall in Guam. And we said 0 to 2. And I have the only thing I could think of doing was going into like the depths of like domestic violence altercation charges around the spring. And I, first of all, didn't want to do that. And second of all, didn't think that it would be an efficient use of time. So I think it's still safe to say that a range of 0 to a single digit number is probably correct for that. Moving on, the other question that I got a little
Definitely
bit
not high. We can say that.
Yeah, I don't think we're overshooting too much. But the other question that we asked was, how many home runs will be hit in Newark by the end of this year?
Right.
We said 150 to 1,000 home runs will be hit in Newark. Now, there's a little bit of information I have. First of all, you might be surprised to learn that the famous Newark Bears, the minor league team of Newark, shut down a few years ago. So they actually avoided the pandemic.
I am surprised to hear that.
Newark's a big baseball town, as we all know. The collegiate leagues, and I think there's like a semi-pro league, have all basically canceled the 2020 season. So that would indicate less home runs. In fact, I'm sure there'll be less home runs than normal. The little league leagues of Newark are saying that they don't want to cancel and that they'd rather postpone any spring leagues into the fall. So we have numbers that are really up in the air. I was trying to figure out how many backyards there are in the Newark area to see how many, estimate how many kids are hitting them out of their own backyards. But really, this question, of all the questions we have, I think this question is extra hard to quantify because we're also kind of dipping our toe into public health future information. So I think this is a good lesson for us to stick to, like I like this like week in May or like, what do you think that, let's say the past month has been? And I think that's also like the census does try and make some predictions. They do have a lot of, we rather do have a lot of modeling data available, but they're also counting in 2020 we're counting the number of people, we're not counting the number of people we think will be existing in a year.
That's right.
So I think it's good to ground ourselves with questions like this. And I'll be the first to say that this was my question, and it wasn't the most I just want to apologize to everyone because it wasn't the most collaborative question here, so So we're still sticking with 150 to 1,000 home runs. But if you're a baseball expert in Newark, please reach out and, tell me how you're feeling right now.
That's right. And also tell us if those teams practice and play within Newark limits.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, the problem with a home run is that you can, I guess you have to define if a home run has it's just you hitting it out of the park, or you have to play a game. Like you have to really make someone embarrassed about it.
Here's another question. Is the home run at the point where the bat hits the ball or at the point where the ball comes to a rest? Because that could be, one of those could be inside of Newark, one of them could be outside of Newark.
I think that has to be where it's hit. I'm pretty confident about that. I think we can take that variable out.
Okay, because look at this. And this might interest you all. I know you're not always. I know Hamilton's wearing a MLB shirt right now, but you're not always the biggest sports fans. But listen here, in San Francisco, they're past the stadium, so they play right on the bay. So when they hit home runs, a bunch of times they hit them into the bay. Mm-hmm. So would you say a home run was hit in the San Francisco Bay? You'd say it was hit in the stadium. It was hit out of the park into the bay.
Yeah, great question. Well, it was hit in the park, right?
And I said how many home runs are hit, not how many home runs are made.
All right, so the point of hit,
Yeah. The point of contact, a home run is defined by it leaving the field, though. Mm-hmm. In fact, actually, Mavi, that brings up a good question. What do we do with inside the park home runs? But that'll be for another episode. All right. So do either of you have questions you're dying to ask?
I definitely have a question. It's a hard one. Do we want to start with a hard one?
Okay. So let's look at it this way. We have our big question and our small question. I think our big question should be something that we can try and wrap our research and brains around, especially when I say our, I mean my research skills. Do you think this is a home run kind of question? Do you think this is like a sushi egg kind of question?
I don't know. This one's neither. I mean, I guess in terms of your ease of research, I would put it in between. You were really impressive with that sushi research.
Thanks. I try to keep it at 30 minutes or less. Actually, can I read you a quote from Staten Island?
Absolutely.
When it was, this is a very emotional article. So quote from one of the patrons, she said her husband, okay, quote, she said her husband, Peter, never gets misty-eyed. But on Sunday night, when the exhausted couple returned home, they cried. What struck an emotional chord was all the workers. Quote, many of them have been there for over a decade, she said. They were so determined to keep up with the orders, they refused to take breaks and cooked 7 hours straight through the weekend. The chefs had to wear masks. Everyone wore gloves, even under the intense heat. I also paused so that workers would have a break, but they wanted to continue working. I was really touched by that. Quote from, what's her name? Helen of Empire Szechuan. Really going on the front lines in Staten Island.
What's her deal? She was just a customer? Or what?
Oh, no, sorry, she was the owner.
Oh, God, fucking damn. It's the key bit of content. All right.
Okay.
A little less wholesome there.
Yeah. My workers work 7 hours straight. No breaks for them. But it was only a day, then they didn't have a job anymore. So that says something. Anyway,
boy.
Hamilton, do you want me to ask a question or want Mavi to ask a question?
How could I possibly make that choice?
I feel like I asked the big one last time. Let's hear yours, Joey.
Okay, all right. Then I'm gonna need both your helps. Who wants to go first? Who wants to give me? Okay, so who wants to give me a location?
Brooklyn.
Okay, Brooklyn. Are you sure?
I'm sure. I'm logging it in.
We're going to explore Queens maybe this time. I want to choose a different borough or still Brooklyn.
All right. Queens it is.
All right, Queens. And then Hamilton. Well, I guess you kind of picked location, but I'm still gonna turn it over to you. Hamilton, pick a religion.
Zoroastrian? No, I'm just I'm gonna say.
No, that's too wild.
I have no idea for the numbers there. I'm gonna say Sikh.
Okay, all right. Interesting. Hamilton and Mavi.
Mhm.
How many people have converted to become Sikhs in Queens
Fuck.
in April of the 2020
Holy fucking
coronavirus
shit.
year?
Oh my god. All right.
Oh boy.
I don't know anything about a Sikh conversion, but it does stand to reason that the conversion proper would occur in the Great Temple in Queens, right? So I'm going to say that if a conversion happens in the city, it probably happens in Queens, right?
Sure.
Okay.
People travel to
Well,
the temple.
to borrow
But-
your baseball point, does it matter like where the conversion happens or where the convertee lives? You know, like
I think-
the demographic shift, is that what counts, or is it the conversion site?
It's when you feel that you are a Sikh. You are truly a Sikh.
I feel like it's got to be an in-temple event. Not that I know anything about a Sikh conversion. To be honest, I don't know if they
You're
accept
so
conversions. I assume they do, but maybe not.
My impression of it would make sense. Like this, it's a lot of it is about like equality, and I mean, a religion based around equality and everyone is a king. It'd be weird if like, oh, but only us. We're the chosen ones.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I just don't know. Okay, so the question is, how many people convert to Sikhism? And I'm going to say New York City because I'm going to say all the New York conversions happen in Queens. Boy, I mean, they're definitely not like out there asking for conversions the way the Bible Crusade is. You know.
That said, they have a big outreach program. Like they do a lot of like charity events and feeding the hungry. I mean, I'm biased considering
true.
I hear about it directly from Tage.
And you've been
So
fed by them.
I've not yet been fed by them. Actually,
We both
I've been
were
looking
fed by
forward to
them.
that.
We were, I mean, not like
Really?
a conversion thing.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, I don't think we went there. I think Tage just brought some food over. But
Wait, no, we
I
were
ate at the
both
temple, yeah.
we were both at not the temple. We were both at his house being fed by his family.
okay, yeah, I would consider that more of a household event than like a charity outreach event, though.
Okay, all right, fine.
Yeah, it's really tough to. I mean, to be honest, I've never heard of a Sikh converso. I don't know. I don't know if.
Yeah, this question really goes through multiple knowledge barriers for us. It's a numbers game, and it's also a what's the word? It's not called Pentecostal. It's what's the word for religion?
What?
Sectarian.
Excuse me.
What's the adjective for like religion? What's a religious?
Religious?
Theological.
Okay. All right.
Not Pentecostal.
All right. So the Sikhs have good PR. People like the Sikhs.
Wait, now in the spirit of
They're
conversion,
well liked. Yeah.
would you guys like to convert to a different religion?
No, we're locked in. We can't make it easier on ourselves. They have a good reputation, but on the other hand, it's not like they're extremely well known.
Often
Queens are
confused with
probably
other
pretty well
major
known.
religions.
What was the time period that you said, Joey?
April 2020.
Oh, in a month. Okay, in one
Yeah.
month. I mean, they can't see that many conversions in a month. It's not like they're
Especially
having
this month.
conversions every day. That's ridiculous.
Is the temple even open right now?
So
Was
I'm
the
I would
wondering.
temple-
I would guess that they have less than 100 a year.
In Queens.
Personally, yeah, in Queens, in New York City, I'm thinking.
If you wanted to divide that, that would be about what, eight per month.
do you mean
on
this
average.
month, Joey?
I meant
This
this
month
past
or
April
recent?
2020.
Okay, April 2020. I'm gonna say there were like 2 conversions. I'm gonna say it was lower than average, but ones that were already underway from January or last year did complete themselves.
You know, since we know someone who's fairly dialed into the community in Queens, we might be able to get an actual hard number on this.
You're right. We totally might.
I'm gonna say 6. I think
Wow.
for some reason I'm just gonna say they're done in
Wow.
batches, and if there was one in progress, then that batch would have.
So do you think that like they're not putting a new batch in the oven now? So there's gonna be like 0 in July.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Do you guys think there are criteria for a Sikh conversion, or is it just like
There's some kind of criteria. You mean like actual things you have to go through, or just being like I accept like Sikh Jesus into my life?
but like, do you think that in their theological system, there's like a line you cross where like you're not a Sikh and then you are a Sikh, or is it just a matter of, you know?
Well, I mean, even
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe I'm not answering your question as much as you'd like, but I think yes, because pretty much every religion has some kind of like ceremony where you're like, I am now like committing to the life of like
Yeah,
being a
that's true.
Sikh, especially because like, I mean,
every religion has that for Sikhism.
no, but like okay, so like in Islam, like it's obviously like a big decision, but like you have a what is it like an imam and like a witness, and like you have some things you say, but it's not like the biggest hardship in the world, but like it is a thing that you do, and you have to like proactively like say it and have this conversation.
I think you're right. I think the alternative is like the only thing I could think of was like, well, you've been a Sikh this whole time, and I don't think that would play.
Oh,
so there
fuck.
has to be like.
Well, let
a
me ask you
moment.
this: do you guys think you can convert to Hinduism? Is there a conversion process to Hinduism?
Oh, that's an interesting point.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's like something where you're, unless they're like, we don't accept converts, unless there's like religion.
Well, I don't think
Is
it's
there a
either
church
of
of Hinduism? Is there like an Orthodox?
I don't think there's a central authority of any kind. No, I think it's like just an ancient philosophical system with.
Okay, well, I mean, okay, so I guess the question is like, so are there religions where you sit down and you're like, I'm a Hindu now, like I'm a Buddhist now, like that's just the way it is, and that's a good question. I guess I consider like pretty much anyone who seriously like wants to convert or like join a religion has to take some steps on their own, but maybe there isn't something written in that's like you got to do a dance, and then you got to like tap your feet, and you got to pet a dwarf, and then you're part of this religion. But it's not the case here.
So does Sikhism fall into that category? I don't know.
No, they don't believe in dwarves. So the Lord of the Rings. Hey, come on, people, come on. So we're locking it in. Our range is 2 to 6.
That's right. And what do you think, Joey? You taking the over or the under?
Oh, I'd love to take the middle, but I can't do that. No.
Hey.
Yeah, I'll take 4. I'll take
it
right in the center there. I'm gonna be shocked when we come back and when it's like 200 converted right before.
Yeah, what are you talking about? Everyone's Sikh.
8 million.
April 2020, everything changed.
Yeah. All right. So that's our first round. We did that pretty it was tough, but I think when we acknowledged that there was a limit to our knowledge, we moved on from that point, and we were able to come to a numbers that we feel comfortable with. So
I think this is researchable too. I think we could probably get a good answer.
Absolutely.
I'm excited actually. Next week we gotta have a guest on.
Can I ask my difficult question, but make you guys answer it quickly?
Okay. All right.
Sure.
Yeah, we got like what 5 minutes speed round.
Great. How many times in history, in total, has Super Mario Brothers, the first Mario game, been beaten?
Okay. So wait. Can anyone tell me when did it come out? All right. So
estimate.
like, is that on a Game Boy? Is that right? Is that a?
Yeah, to estimate, my dude. No, I'm sure it's pre-Game Boy.
Okay, all right. So
pre-Game Boy.
Okay, so what is it like? Let's say 1984. Yeah. Okay, so the 80s. Well, let's make it a
what system that is.
Let's make it 1980. I feel like I'm going to underestimate anyway. So let's make it 1980. So that's 40 years.
Like
so
the NES or the Super NES or something like that.
so for the first 5 years or so, I bet there was like massive interest in this game. That like a lot of people are beating it, especially when we're talking about Japan, US, some European markets, and then a few like other okay. So then like majorly in Japan, and like a few major US markets to start with, as it spread out to other like arcade centers around the world. So let's say it was beaten.
Yeah, beaten.
Like you got to go through every level.
That's right.
So I guess we're trying to estimate how many like nerds there are in each city that have access to this game.
It's a good stretch.
And so, okay, all right. So Japan, Japan's probably got a lot. Okay, I'm thinking like major cities in Japan: Tokyo, Kyoto.
All right.
We got let's say 1,000 nerds in Japan, total. Let's say
What?
West Coast. 1,000 people in the first year beat that game.
Okay.
West Coast
That seemed
America.
very low to me.
We got, all right, fine, 2,000. We got we got another, let's say like 5,000 beat the game. Beat. Although actually, I don't know 80s like culture for how many people beat the game. And people were like, this is stupid. I don't know how hard this game is. Okay, let's boost it up. Let's say 10,000 in Japan, 20,000 West Coast, 30,000 US East Coast, another 30,000. No, wait, no, that's too high. 20,000 in Europe. So what we got, 50, 70. Okay, let's say 100,000. And then the rest of the world, I'm gonna round it out and say there's a bunch of like nerds all around who are beating it in different corners of the world, whether that be like Russia, South Dakota, Brazil, maybe like a couple arcades in China. In the 80s, though, that'd be probably not that many. Okay, so 150,000 in 1980, and then let's see, for the next few years, I bet it goes up a lot. So let's double that. Let's say by the end of the next year, there's going to be almost 500,000 wins on that game. And I'm going to say 1 million wins by 1985. And then it starts becoming more stabilized and plateaued. And let's say another 2 million by the end of the decade. So by 90, we have 3 million wins. By but from the 90s to 2000, there's new games that have come out. So maybe there's just 1 million more wins that whole decade.
Okay, fair enough.
So that's 4 million wins, I think, total. And then again, there's more games. So let's say only another 1 million or so.
But then eventually we get the rise of emulators.
What is that? I don't know what that is.
People just downloading this game onto their computers.
Right.
Playing it that way.
Right, but there's so many. At that point, there's so many people. There's so many games to play.
Retro gaming craze.
Yeah. But there's people
Everyone's
have so many
gonna play
games
the
to go
first one.
through. That's true. Oh, that's a fucking good point. So then I'll say 2 million for the 2000s. I was gonna say 1 million. I'll say 2 million. So 7 million wins from 1980 to 2020.
Oh, the 2000s was 2 decades. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So 1 million for each decade of the 2000s. So I'm going to say 7 million wins since the inception of Super Mario Brothers, the original one.
Okay.
All right, Hamilton, I've given you some time.
So my initial thoughts were like 200 million. Or like 300 million.
Whoa.
Wow.
I was just doing some like weird math in my head. It was like, okay, if like 5% of people maybe beat this game in Japan and America, and then I thought that's way too high. But over the course of an amount of time, like
people die too.
Who initially played them? It's the people that got interest over the time. It's people who went back and played them. Then it's people who replayed them. I don't think you're replaying that more than like 5 times, and you have to be obsessed to do that. But I could see people maybe going up to 10. That's the rare case.
I mean, there's different kinds of people. I would assume, and this is just my assumption, that most of the people who own this game never beat it, just because they're like kids
Yeah.
and stuff, But then also the people who are into it beat it a whole bunch of times,
So like, I was thinking in America, just for example, how many people out of the 350 million people would have beaten this game? Is it 1 million or is it 100,000? Which one is the closer answer? I think it's somewhere between, maybe even lower. But
Wait, Mavi, I have a question for you.
Mhm.
Did you ask how many people or how many times has this game
How
been
many
beaten?
times has it been beaten?
Okay.
Mhm.
So I stick by my 7 million then.
All right, 7 million.
Yeah, a lot of those are multi-wins, but people trying to play for time.
I think at least 100,000 people have beaten this game in the United States, probably multiple times. If you want to extend that to other countries, you could probably say that at least 1 million individuals have beaten this game.
Living.
And they've probably done it most of the time. It doesn't matter, living or no.
Dead or alive.
Something on the order of magnitude of 1 million people. Maybe 2 million, maybe 5. I don't think 10. And then they probably beat it on average more than once. So probably something like, I'm going to say the average is 5, because the people who are beating that game and have like nostalgia value for it. And the number can be really high. The number can be really high in terms of the total number of replays.
So you think that the average person who's beaten Super Mario has beaten it 5 times?
I don't think the average person is beating Super Mario, the first one. I think this is already a subset.
Okay. All right.
Agreed.
Proceed.
So I think 7 million is a good answer. I'm going to go over and say something like 10 to 20. I'll average it at like 15. Maybe 20, just to go a little bit higher, give us a higher range.
Okay, wait. So Mavi, you can talk as I write these things down.
So there is another thing to think about, which is that people buying and playing video games was very different in the 80s. Like, we might think right now, people buy a game, but most of them don't play it all the way through. And that's true for people these days with their big Steam libraries of games they don't care about or whatever. But in the 80s, I don't know, maybe you're sitting there, you only have 1 or 2 cartridges of quality games and no other activities in your life. You know what I mean? Maybe beating it is a lot more common than we thought, and maybe even among more casual players, just beating it every night of your life is more common than we thought. It could be. I don't know.
Yeah, I can see that.
We should secure interviews with older geeks.
We should hack an emulator and just have it like ping us every time someone wins. Give us some.
I think Mavi. I think this question is not quite as specifically answerable as the Sikh question, but I think we've improved a lot the past few weeks at getting to questions that are silly but not too silly. So, what is your are you taking the over, the under here?
Oof, it's a hard question. Remind me of your 2 estimates.
I said 7 million.
Mm-hmm.
I said 20 million.
20. Oh, I got to change my numbers. Okay.
Those are some pretty reasonable guesses in my opinion. And
good.
I would like to agree with those, but if I'm taking the over or the under, I think I would take the over. But I don't know.
Okay. You can also take the middle if you want. I did that as well.
I think the middle is pretty reasonable.
Maybe we shouldn't do that. Maybe we should make the question asker do the over, the under. That seems more fun.
Just over or under? All right, I'm taking the over.
Okay. I'm gonna take I'm gonna have to change my answer for the Sikh question. I'm going to take a risk here, and I'm gonna take the under. I'm gonna say that 1 or less people have converted that have the public has knowingly converted to being a Sikh.
Wait, sorry, what was that sentence?
I'm gonna say that 1 or fewer people, or 1 or 0 people, like in public knowledge, converted to become a Sikh.
Mm,
You know, in terms of like going to a temple or something, because I feel like the custodians of the Sikh temple would be very responsible about not letting crowds in to do things that could be done later. However, there definitely could be people that are like, fuck the temple, I'm a Sikh now. And so
I don't know how many of those people are you expecting?
well, okay, you know what? I shouldn't use language. This is a clean show here. I felt bad after saying that, but maybe they're like, darn the temple. I am gonna be a Sikh here. Okay, so I'm taking the under. I know it's a risk, but I feel like 6 is too many. I feel like my 4 is a sweet spot. Okay, Hamilton, do you have you have like a question that you want us to give us numbers on?
I had a really weird one, which I feel like is not going to play with our new sort of researchable rules.
Okay, well then give me one that I'm not going to research. Just give me your question.
I can. I'll tell you what the question is, and then we can decide if there's less reasonable. I was just thinking about it because I play with a tape measure a lot in my spare time. I just open and close it, and I was wondering how many, like, in some place. Let's just stick with another. Let's say Staten Island. How many in Staten Island? How many feet of tape measures have been unsheathed in April?
So to be clear, like, you're saying if you open your tape measure once, close it, open it again, that's twice. That's
2 feet.
Happening twice.
4 feet.
Okay.
6 feet.
So how many feet is our question? All right.
All right. I'm not
going to also do inches, measurements.
Jesus.
This is really off the other side of the pool.
So again, we can shift to something more researchable because I have no idea.
I'm gonna say my same.
What's the population of Staten Island?
It's like 400,000.
That's what I thought too. Okay, 400,000 people. A tape measure in every home, but some
Maybe
get
more.
used and some don't. Yeah,
a lot of people are also, you know, there's single. There's some apartments, but there's a lot of like single family or like, you know, home units that there could be more repairs on.
Yeah, I hear you. So I'm just saying, you know, pretty much everyone has access to a tape measure. No one's hurting for tape measures. You know, a lot of contractors in Staten Island, a lot of people who do construction type work.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and say my same answer as before: 7 million feet in April.
The question is April, Hamilton?
Yeah, right. Yeah, April.
Just past April.
And remember, construction is still allowed in New York.
Oh boy, that's right. Okay, 400,000 people. All right, our high end, if all 400,000 of those people are constantly sheathing and
not constantly, it doesn't take that long. One nervous sheath a day will get.
I'm just saying, it's our high estimate, okay? Our high.
Okay, all right. For once, I overestimated.
I guess you can do at a reasonable pace. You're doing 2 feet per second.
Well, Hamilton, how many are you doing a day, would you say?
That's the thing. Like, I was thinking about that, but I'm like, I use it to fidget.
Right. Okay. So some people are doing this.
I do measure things sometimes. And when they're measuring something, they're always measuring something. You know, measure twice, cut once. So you have to double your answer right there.
Good point.
So, I mean, let's see. I've done this 10 feet now, and this has been 5 minutes.
Look at that, Mavi. If there's only a few Hamiltons in Staten Island, we're getting there pretty quickly.
By the way, I'm not counting the going back. It's
oh,
just
yeah, thank you. Out. Yes, that would be ridiculous. All right, so Mavi, let's get an answer and let's go on to next week.
I'm gonna stay in the ranges we've occupied. I'm gonna say 40 million. Was that your Mario guess, Hamilton?
Mine was 20 million.
All right, I'm doubling it to 40 million feet.
Wait, so you said mine was the high estimate?
No, I was trying to figure out what the high end would be if every person in Staten Island was constantly sheathing and unsheathing.
Wow, so you thought my answer was low.
Yeah.
All right, that's estimates.
Can I give a brief estimate for that?
Sure. Over or under?
So I think over.
Okay.
So 400,000 people times 30 days.
Okay.
That's,
go on.
So I'm going to figure out the number, like the average number on a day. So 400,000 by 30 is 12 million. So if the average for that one person is 1 foot, then we're already at 12 million. And I think the average per person per day is over 1 foot. I think if you're measuring something, you're blowing up that average.
But to be clear, you understand that most people aren't doing any tape measure activities on a given day.
Yeah. But I think Staten Island, the proportion is higher. People got more space there. They have their own like.
So what's your number, Hamilton?
Things. My number is 200 million.
Holy!
All right. Okay. I mean, it's not unreasonable, but I definitely prefer 40 million.
Wow. I look like a rube right now with my 7 million feet. All right, so that's episode Baker's Dozen of estimates. Yeah. Come back next week to hear some estimated answers. And for those federal workers out there, if you need more information, you email us at estimatespodcast@gmail.com.
Or if you have more information, right?
Correct. If you have more information, you want more information, you need more information, estimatespodcast@gmail.com. And if you have the estimates@gmail.com and you're willing to give it up, let us know. estimatespodcast@gmail.com. All right. You should like, subscribe, whatever else on Spotify, Apple, or both. Any last thoughts, guys?
Last thoughts. I got no thoughts.
Anything you want to plug? Did you like Defibrillator? You like that game? You want to plug it?
Sorry, excuse me.
Did you like
that was a tool in that game?
Oh. What's the game called?
Jackbox. I think in general.
Yeah, Jackbox. Fibbage. If you want to play Fibbage with your friends, log on to jackbox.fm.com.edu for more information. All right, and that's estimates.
Estimates.
All right.